you for sharing your afternoon with us here on Kababayan LA. Isa pong makabuluhang balitaktakan ang ginagawa namin ngayon sa ating programa dahil pinag-uusapan po natin ano nga ba ang sukat ng tagumpay para sa ating mga kababayan dito sa Amerika. Dahil marami pong mga iba't ibang definitions, and earlier we introduced you to our guest this afternoon. Edith has left us but for now, pero in her place, nandito po si Gail Lafreniere, ang ating kaibigan. Palagi ka dito, no?
Thank you,
and she always gives us the scientific perspective of things because she is a licensed family and marriage and family therapist.
Yes.
And of course, we're bringing back Roland here. Hello and welcome back. And Carol also. Earlier, Gail, we talked about the definition of success. Roland said, as long as you have joy in your heart. Carol said, as long as you achieve a goal, and that goal is something that you set for yourself, so it's subjective. And Edith said, as long as you fulfill the hierarchy of needs.
Right.
And so, speaking from your area of expertise, what is success?
Right. Well, I think it really, and thank you, Edith, for bringing up Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because I really believe, in my practice, that's what we have to consider. You cannot be looking at what is the joy in your heart or accomplishing something if you don't have a roof over your head or if you're not able to clothe your kids and give them food. So I think that the measure of success would also be dependent on where you are economically, and also what your reasons were for migrating to America.
Okay. Does that have anything to do with when we go out and go to a Filipino event, itong mga kababayan natin kailangan talagang palaging nakapustura, nakasuot ng mga malalaking alahas, gumagamit ng mga branded na mga bags, dadating ng mga naka-Mercedes or luxury cars?
Well, as they say, that is a measure of success. I mean, I have Caucasian friends who tell me, you're Filipino, you don't have a Mercedes? This is what they know that Filipinos look at as a measure of success.
So our community, is there such a thing, you're a professor, Carol, is there such a thing as a community measure of success? Earlier you mentioned personal goals, diba? Pero meron ba yun community aspect to that?
I'm going to go on a limb and say I don't think so.
Okay.
Because I truly believe it's very subjective, it's very individualized, and there is a reporting bias. When we say Filipinos like to drive in Mercedes and wear expensive jewelry, we're talking about some Filipinos.
Okay.
But if you go to certain areas, you would find that not all Filipinos are like that.
Okay.
That who gets noticed, who's conspicuous, are people who want to be conspicuous.
Right.
And those who are not very conspicuous are not seen, and I mean, obviously, so we don't report on that. So we don't talk about the Filipinos who are not driving the Mercedes.
Right.
But we see the Filipinos who are mabongga. And that's the reason.
Very showy, very showy.
So.
But it doesn't mean that you're not successful.
Yes, and Janelle, I think I just also want to make sure, just because you have all of this what we call material things, that doesn't necessarily mean that that is not appropriate for you.
That's why. So that's why. No, this brings me to a next phrase that I want to introduce: status purchases.
Right.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on that, Roland? I mean, is that something that you're aware of? Also, is that something that you pursue as well as a Filipino American?
Well, just kind of growing up, you are pressured to pursue success and things like that. But, growing up as an entrepreneur and taking in mentors who are very wealthy, they're actually very simple, live below their means, and would rather grow their wealth than spend. So, for example, if I was to buy an expensive watch, before I would put it on a credit card and be in debt. Right. But now, if I could just go into a store, spend $10,000 and not worry about it because, I have a lot more in the bank account.
Right.
I would do that. And that's something that I was really concerned growing up when, I go to some of these family parties is, you see all these Mercedes-Benzes and Gucci things and this and that. But then they come to me for advice, financial advice, and they're telling me, oh, can I borrow $500 or $1,000?
Right. So you're bringing something up that's also, I think, we need to talk about. Yung utang. I mean, okay, so you live in a really big, nice house, a lot of rooms, you drive a Mercedes, you have all these branded items, status purchases, but you're drowning in debt. Right. Is that success?
Yes, and I think for other Filipinos, yes, other Filipinos, because again, it is their ability to do this. Because because the reason they migrated to America, as you say, is the American dream.
Right.
Is because in Manila or in the Philippines, no matter how much you work, you may never be able to buy a Mercedes. So for them to come to America and do that, that is a measure of their success. And who are we to
judge, right, that
yes.
it's not or it's good?
Yes.
But see, the thing is, does that help? Does that help our community? Or does that put additional pressure on us to perform on that level because of the way we perceive success? Karen?
That's when it becomes a problem. Is when we start equating success with purchase of these status goods,
right?
It becomes problematic because then you start drowning in debt. Individually, they may perceive it as success, but at what cost?
Right.
Yeah.
And if we talk about family values, family values important to us, are we willing to sacrifice?
Yeah. And it's not even status purchases. It's also about, let's say, Gucci or Louis Vuitton. But then because we perceive people having that as success or for ourselves, sometimes kahit hindi kaya, bibili ng fake.
Sure.
Diba? And you know, that's...
And I think that's a very important aspect as well, because what happens is sometimes I see the kids of the parents coming to me and saying, I don't understand my parents' concept of success. You know, I would have preferred that they spend time with me rather than giving me all these material things.
Okay, and so we're talking about this. We're trying to delve deeper as we progress with the segments on the show. When we return, you know, let's try to brainstorm here and talk about how to change that. Is it really hopeless? And because obviously it harms our community in a way, it harms us individually when we measure success that way. So we try to do something about it. We're going to be talking about maybe some solutions. Talk about that when we return on Kababayan LA. Don't go away. Gusto niyo